Hey guys, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday if you celebrate it. But today we have our final mock draft. Yes, it's going to be a close for this particular series on my own end, that is. I'm going to be looking to do a collaboration effort regarding the final mock draft that will be live. So stay tuned for that. But I want to do my final mock draft in the sense of what I think the Cowboys should do, my overall assessment of where the roster is at, going from offense, defense to special teams, and just try to hone in on what I think the Cowboys need to do to kind of really finish up this offseason, okay? We'll talk about how I feel like they did in free agency. We'll go through all of that stuff in today's video. So if you guys can like the video, that'd be great. Subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell. That'd be awesome. So without further ado, let's get into this very comprehensive final mock draft. Alrighty guys, so welcome. Got ourselves the depth chart here for the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll get into the key of how to look at it as we're going through it, but this is going to be more of a longer form video, more podcast style-esque. So sit back, relax. If you want to listen in, that's cool, but just keep that in mind, alright? We'll get through this, then we're going to do a full round mock draft of what I feel the Cowboys should do at each pick given a certain circumstance, and all that other stuff. So, let's go ahead and get things started. So, what exactly is this whole depth chart thing that I made mean? What do the colors mean? All that other stuff. So, the dark little green or the forest green, that means that that person's franchise tag. That would be Dalton Schultz. Anybody in the light red or crimson color, whatever you want to call it, that's a free agent for next year. It's important that we understand who's going to be a free agent next year because these drafts are for the long term as well, okay? The Cowboys spent a lot of the draft capital they had last year on the defensive side of the football. And I think what's important for us to understand is that this could be a year where they throw everything at the offensive end or they just do a mixed approach. I don't know. We got to kind of see how things go and stuff like that. But I'm going to go from left to right, from quarterback to long snapper. You know, how do I feel about the position? Some will be a little bit quicker. Others will be a little bit drawn out. We'll go through the whole free agency and just talk about what I think this roster needs to do to be solid for next year. So, starting off with the quarterback, okay? So you got Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush back up. You got Will Greer, and Ben DiNucci as backups, okay? Like, all that stuff's there as well. I think that this is a green right here. You know, yes, the backup quarterback situation is important, but I think the Cowboys will be fine. You just got to find the next guy if you decide to move on from Cooper Rush. But the Cowboys are set. You have your guy at quarterback in Dak Prescott. Whether you like him or not, the fact of the matter is the Cowboys invested in him. He's your guy. In his first year with the new contract, 11 wins under his leadership, and throwing 37 touchdowns in 16 games, even with an extra game, is pretty impressive. Okay, having one of the better Cowboys quarterback seasons. I understand that the end result wasn't what we wanted, but look, Dak played very well given the circumstances. So there's that. Moving on to running back. So running back, you have Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Ryan Nall, the free agent addition, Jaquan Hardy, Sewo Alunya, and Nick Ralston. Okay? When you look at the running back situation, right, Corey Clement was your free agent, and he is not coming back, which, by the way, it wasn't a big deal to bring him back. And so I think that the Ryan Nall pickup is that replacement, but I think the biggest question mark is, number one, what are you looking to do with Zeke, and what's Tony Pollard going to do for the future? I think if the Dallas Cowboys really, really, really were smart, you're going to need to use Tony Pollard as much as you can. You're probably not going to re-sign him. He's going to go elsewhere. As much as it hates me to say that, that's the truth. Unless the Cowboys re-sign him and cut Zeke, I don't know. But I am a firm believer that this entire position group comes down to one of two things. The first thing is Zeke. What is going to happen with him next year? You kind of have to think about, okay, if he has a down year hypothetically, or he just is not worth that contract, you might have to move on, right? And Zeke looked solid. He looked really good to start off the year. He got hurt, and that hampered him. So I am not going to sit there and be like, okay, Zeke needs to go type of thing. However, it is a question mark. But even if Zeke's fine, that backup running back stuff is important. If you don't want to put too much tread on Zeke's tire, which, by the way, the Cowboys have done a pretty good job at that, aside from the whole, they should have really not played him when he had the whole tear in his knee, I think they'll be fine. But I think this is more so what do you do with the backups? You know, yes, Jaquan Hardy and Nick Ralston are under contract for the next 2 seasons, including this next one upcoming. But I think what's important here is you might have to think about drafting a running back that's going to get like a 4-year contract. But if you're not going to do it this year, I completely understand that because honestly, you can wait till next year to do it. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys look at going running back here. So I'm going to put this position group at yellow. It's not fully set in terms of like long-term implications because I'm not just looking at next year. I'm looking at, okay, you know, look, Tony, you know, I understand that Zeke and Tony are cool, but you got to think about it this way. What's going to happen the next year or the year after that? So that's an important thing. So I think at running back, you're okay, but you could, you know, look to add something there. Wide receiver. Now, wide receiver got really interesting this offseason. And it started with Amari Cooper being traded. Okay, so Amari Cooper gets traded to the Browns. You get a 5th-round pick and you swap 6th. Whoopee. Okay. Honestly, you probably should have kept him. But you bring back Michael Gallup and you bring back Noah Brown. Michael Gallup on the 5-year deal, which is really a 2-year deal. And then you have Noah Brown as the guy coming back on a 1-year deal, right? You bring in James Washington, you lose Cedric Wilson to free agency. So realistically, okay, even if you include re-signings, yes, the Dallas Cowboys ultimately, you look at, okay, they lost Amari Cooper, Malik Turner, and Cedric Wilson. You lose 3, and then you add you add James Washington, you bring back Michael Gallup and Noah Brown. You know, that's a huge thing right there because we don't know. Yes, I understand that James Washington, I feel like given the circumstances in Pittsburgh, he didn't have the chance to show off his full potential. But this is another thing. You signed a guy that's not going to be a starting wide receiver. You got a guy that's going to be your wide receiver 3, which I'm a firm believer that, yes, you want to churn and burn wide receivers. The Cowboys did this with Randall Cobb. You know, I don't know the other person they did it with, but I know that they've done it with other receivers before Dak Prescott was here. But the point I'm trying to get at is you don't sign your tier 2 guys to massive contracts. Luckily, you brought back Michael Gallup on a nice little contract, but he's going to be hurt until October. Like he's not going to be playing, guys. I hate to say it, but he is not going to be playing. So you have CeeDee Lamb, James Washington, Noah Brown, Simi Fehoko, Brandon Smith, and TJ Vasher. As much as Simi has, you know, a decent amount of potential, I'm not going to sit here and let people try to convince me that Simi Fehoko is going to magically keep the production that the other guys are, you know what I mean? So that's something we got to keep an eye out on. So for me, I think that a position you must address in the long term is definitely your wide receiving core. Your wide receiving core, even if everyone is fully healthy, is meh. You know, yes, you have a bona fide stud with CeeDee Lamb. Then you have Michael Gallup, which we have question marks. And if he's healthy, you're solid. But I really do think you need to add one more guy in there, like a slot guy, long term. Like a young guy, okay? Because, you know, I'm more of like, I want to add someone in the later rounds because, you know, given who they take in round 1, that's saying to me, okay, CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup are on the clock. Someone's going to go. Same thing when we took CeeDee. So I think that wide receiver, in the long term, ladies and gentlemen, you might have to consider drafting someone. That's just me. Now, we move over to tight end. Dalton Schultz has been franchise tagged. No deal yet. Sean McEwen is, you know, coming back. You know, he's got the whole, you know, 1-year contract remaining on his deal and stuff like that. You brought back Jeremy Sprinkle on his 1-year deal, and then Ian Bunting. He's got a 2-year deal, given that, you know, contract. For me, this comes down to what you do with Dalton Schultz. If you re-sign Dalton Schultz, awesome. I think that you're set at tight end because you've committed to that tight end. However, the Cowboys have not yet. The Cowboys have not re-signed Dalton Schultz, number 1, but number 2, and they have until, I think, July to sign something or for him to sign the tag, which I don't know if he signed it. From what I understand, he has not yet. I could be wrong. Please inform me if he has. But I have question marks for the guys behind him. You know, I think that if the Cowboys really want to be successful, you need to have other guys behind him. And Dalton Schultz, do I think he's worth that top-end money? I mean, he's commanded a market for it, so of course he's going to cost that much. But for me, you can upgrade from Dalton Schultz this draft. So for me, this is a must-need position long term. Again, you have yet to decide what you want to do with Dalton Schultz. I understand that you could be yelling at me through the TV screen or the computer screen, however you're watching this, and tell me, "Oh, Space, you're wrong." This, that. But think about it. 2-3 years down the line, you have yet to decide what you're doing at your tight end position. Wide receiver, the reason that's must address is, again, sure, you got your 2 guys there probably, but you're going to need more because we don't know what we have back there. Okay? Now you go to left tackle. For me, left tackle is a solid yellow. It would be green if Tyron Smith's health was not a problem. But this is where things come into play, ladies and gentlemen. You lose Ty Nsekhe, who was a solid swing tackle for you. As much as people want to disagree or say, like, oh, well, this, that, and the third, Tyron Smith, when he went out, I feel like your best position to really win was to put Ty Nsekhe there and leave Terrence Steele on the right side. But we'll get into that momentarily. But Tyron Smith's getting up there in age. He's been in the league for such a long, long time that his body's starting to break down. You need to think about, his replacement. People talked about Josh Ball. I like Josh Ball. I think that he has potential. But it's the same thing like when I talk about all these other guys. We have to wait and see. Because, I say that, I said it about Matt Farniak. I said it about a couple of these other young guys. But if they don't have a lot of time to really, us to look and be like, okay, we have something here, that's a problem. So I think if the Cowboys are going to roll with this, you got to put Josh Ball at left tackle and see what you got. Because, if not, now you're like, okay, I need to get a tackle. So for me, you can go into this draft and get someone, but, again, long term, if Tyron Smith's giving you 14 games or if he's giving you 13 games, he's worth it for that type of money you're paying him. I know it hates me to, I hate to say that, but Tyron Smith's worth that if he's playing all that time. But outside of that, you got to figure out what's going on there. Now we get to left guard. For me, this comes down to this. How you view Connor McGovern. I know you have the kid Isaac Alicorn, which I like him. I think, again, you got something there possibly, but we can't keep our hopes up, ladies and gentlemen, because if you're trying to win something in the long term, you need to have that guy there. Connor McGovern was thrown into the worst situation possible, and he showed, okay, maybe this guy isn't it, but the Cowboys do like him. The Cowboys really like him and Tyler Biadasz. So, much to your chagrin, the Dallas Cowboys want to possibly roll with him. But for me, in the long-term implications, this is a must address, ladies and gentlemen. Connor McGovern is going into the last year of his deal. Unless you extend him, and unless he shows promise, he's not coming back. So that is why I'm more inclined to believe that they'll take a left guard sometime in this draft. But even if it's not this year, you're going to need to take a guard. That left guard position has been so, up and down since Ronald Leary left. You had something in Connor Williams, whether the holding penalties be damned. You had something in him. And at the end of the day, yes, he's gone. You could have re-signed him for cheap. If you saw that contract the Miami Dolphins gave him, it was definitely worth consideration to bring him back. But he's not here anymore. So now you have to address that. And that's just the end of that. Going to center, I'm going to leave this as a yellow. Tyler Biadasz isn't terrible. He is what, and Vach Lombardi talks about it, and I am a firm believer in this as well. Tyler Biadasz is what average center play looks like, and I understand you're not going to have a all-pro in every single part of your line. Now, this is a big problem I have. He doesn't call protections, and that's huge. I need my center to be able to do that, and if he can't do that, you need to look at getting someone that, or if he can learn that, that'd be awesome. I think with how many more years you have with Tyler, you have now, you got 2 more years with him. So I think that you can hold off on the center position, but don't be afraid to take a guy that you think is better than him. Matt Farniak, I think, can compete. He has shown glimpses, But I'm not going to fall into this trap of overrating certain players. I refuse to do that. I'm not going to try and do that. So I think that that's a position you can look to upgrade in the long term. Right guard, as long as Zach Martin is upright, you're A-okay. Now, Zach Martin's in his 30s, and he can keep playing long term. He's had some injury stuff, but for me, the biggest thing is this. If the injuries start piling on, I'm going to have to turn this into a yellow in the long term. But Zach Martin, you know, outside of Dak and what you got on that team, you know, you really could possibly look to, you know, upgrade at every position or add something there. You're set at right guard. You don't need to plug someone in there. Right tackle, this is a yellow to me. Terrence Steele is in the final year of his contract, and unless the Dallas Cowboys re-sign him, which they should immediately if they are willing to jettison La'el Collins, for God's sake, you let go of La'el Collins. He is now with the Cincinnati Bengals. You elected to keep Terrence Steele for the long term, possibly. You need to sign him now before it's too late, before his price tag gets too high. And I think that if the Cowboys re-sign Terrence Steele, that's awesome. You have your answer at right tackle for the next couple seasons. But now the question shifts to, okay, who's going to be your swing tackle? Which I think Josh Ball can do that, but he needs to prove that. Okay? So Terrence Steele, and then I know you have Avante Collins and, you know, a couple of these other guys that I'm not talking about, but that's because they're backups. I don't see anything more than that. So there's that. So that's your offense. You're set at 2 positions. You have 3 positions in the long term you need to seriously consider taking someone. And 4 others where you're like, okay, you know what? I think I'm set, but given decision making, that's where we're at. So let's continue over to the defensive side of the ball, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. What can you guys see here? Let's move this over. There we go. Okay. So, with that being said, give me 1 second. So, let's start with defensive end. Now, defensive end, Bradley and I is gone, and Randy Gregory is gone. You bring back Dorrance Armstrong. You have Chauncey Goldstein, the young guy. You brought in Dante Fowler. But for me, you downgraded at the position, you know. Randy Gregory, I'm not saying he was like all-pro type of stuff, but he was really good. And the fact of the matter was, if you were willing to spend that money on Randy Gregory but no other free agent, that's a problem. But again, you're telling me that your defensive end 1, alongside the guy who was defensive end 3, maybe 4, depending on how you viewed him on the depth chart, you're banking on your DN 3 and 4 to be your defensive end 2, right? And then you have guys like Terrell Basham, Chauncey Goldstein, and Dante Fowler in the mix. I think for this position group, because you committed to Dorrance Armstrong for not that big of a contract, you know, that's a 2-year contract. So, and then on top of that with DeMarcus Lawrence, you know, his full contract, you know, now he's here for 3 years. I personally think this is a yellow for me. You have guys that you can lean on, especially I know you have Micah Parsons in the mix as well, but you can use an upgrade here. Unless Chauncey Goldstein really steps up, you know, Terrell Basham, he can be, but it's meh to me. DeMarcus Lawrence and Armstrong had to do their part, but don't be shy to not taking an edge. I would not be upset with that whatsoever, but I'm not gonna. I don't think they're gonna take an edge. So we go to defensive tackle, right? The Cowboys are not bringing back Brent Urban. It looks like, right? Neville Gallimore is here. Tristan Hill's in the final year of his contract. Osa Odigizua had a fantastic rookie campaign. If it wasn't for Micah Parsons, we've been talking a lot about Osa. Carlos Watkins is back on a 1-year deal. Quentin Bohanna, and then you have 2 other guys, you know, Brunson and Fayalu. Adam. Point big is there's the other 2. Well, realistically speaking, you can upgrade here. Absolutely. I think that this is a definite, you can upgrade here. If Neville Gallimore and Osa continue to develop as young guys, you'll be set. But I think that I want a 1-tech. I need some beefy 1-tech in there. You have a bunch of, you have a lot of 3-techs, and I think the Cowboys, like, they're looking at more 3-techs, which you don't need. More 3-techs. You're good. I need a 1-tech there. I need a 1-tech. You have a lot of guys that can do a lot of these other things, but I want one guy that can do that job. You had a chance to step out in free agency and get a couple guys, but you elected not to. And If you're going to roll with Neville and Osa as your primary guys, we can't, and again, I do trust Dan Quinn. I want to make that emphatically clear, but you got to continue to give him more talent. I think that you can add to that defensive tackle core right there. So yeah, there's that. Moving on to linebacker. Now, hear me out here. This is a red. This is a must address. Oh, Space, how is that? You have Micah Parsons. Awesome. Jabril Cox showed flashes, looked great. He's hurt. You need more there. You need more linebackers. LVE and Luke Gifford and Devontae Bonder aren't going to cut it. LVE is probably not going to be here next year. Same thing with Luke Gifford. I need to draft another young or, two young defensive guys at that position to really make sure that I can make Micah Parsons free roam. Micah Parsons, I want him to do both. I don't want him to be a full-time pass rusher. I don't want him to be a full-time linebacker. What he is most effective at, is making him roam. Getting a guy that you can draft and plug in at the linebacking position, like a Nakobe Dean or someone of that caliber, that's going to be important. The reason why that's important is it allows Micah Parsons to do what he wants to do, and you're not forcing him to do one role. So I'm saying you go get a linebacker this draft. Does it have to be the first round? No. I mean, depending on how the draft pans out, that's going to really determine that. But there's that. Cornerback, look, the whole Kelvin Joseph situation threw us into a loop. Anthony Brown's in the final year of his contract. CJ Goodwin has one more year left on his deal. However, Trevon Diggs, you have 2 more years, but you're entering that third year. And I forgot to mention this with CeeDee Lamb. You're entering that third year where they will ask for new contracts. Trevon Diggs, he's not a first rounder. Okay? So you might have to start negotiating with him immediately after season's end. But if I'm Trevon Diggs, I'm going for that money. So the Cowboys have a solid number 1. I could say that without a doubt. However, yes, you have Jordan Lewis. I like Jordan Lewis. I think that he's a solid playmaker there. But with Anthony Brown, you can upgrade there. Nashawn Wright, I still think he has not proven to be worthy of that third-round selection. We'll see what happens this year. Again, you have a lot of young guys in this secondary. So, you need to see how they pan out. I think at corner, you can add someone. I think the Cowboys are going to be banking on Anthony Brown to be around for another year before they let him walk. I think that, look, Kelvin Joseph was the plan. We'll see how that pans out, but I think he'll be fine, but we'll see. But I think you can add another young guy. You're not pressed to do it, but you can add another young guy. Then we go to safety. Now, safety, everybody's under contract for multiple years. Okay? The Dallas Cowboys have brought back both Malik Hooker and Jaron Kearse, which were possibly the best parts of the offseason. And, I think that this speaks volumes for what you want to do with, in the draft. But the part that kind of boggles my mind is that, yes, Jaron Kearse can be that multi-role guy we were hoping Keanu Neal can be. Keanu Neal is gone. DeMonte Casey's gone. If Malik Hooker stays healthy, you upgraded at that position ultimately. Jaron Kearse, you kept him. You kept a leader on that team who was very solid for you. I think that guys like Donovan Wilson, Darian Thompson, those guys like that, you can upgrade. But for me, I think we're set at safety. Call me crazy, but I think we're good at safety. The Dallas Cowboys, for the first time in a long time, have players that I'm sort of comfortable with, and they're very talented. If Hooker stays healthy, you're set. You're good. If Jaron Kearse continues to keep doing what he's doing, you got 2 good safeties. That's the first time I could say that the Cowboys have finally got guys that I could trust. It's those backups. Kind of similar to that of the Zach Martin type of situation, where, yes, you got 2 guys that can hold their own, but you can upgrade those backups. But again, I'm more holding it on the overall layout of that position. So in the long term, you have 2 guys which you could probably bring back. Kicker, instant red. You might need to bring someone in. I don't know. Because with Chris Nagar, we don't know how he's going to look. We go to Brian Anger. That's a green. Hunter Nicewander, I forgot to take him out. He's no longer on the team. So now you have Brian Anger and Jacob McQuaid. He's on a veteran minimum. You're good there. So kind of to go back and take a look. Realistically speaking, okay, as I'm going to just show you here before I continue, you are set at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 position groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups that you can look to upgrade. 1, 2, 3, like, I'm going to just say 4. Kicker's easy to address. The 4 that you need to address: linebacker, wide receiver, tight end, and left guard. Plain and simple. I know some of you might disagree with me, but in the long term, that's what you're going to have to be looking at. So, let's go ahead. Let's get this mock draft started. This will be what I think the Dallas Cowboys need to do, okay? So, let's go ahead and get started over there. Alrighty, guys, so welcome to the mock draft simulator, okay? So, let's go ahead. We're going to do a 4-round mock draft because outside of the 5th round and beyond, the Cowboys haven't done notable to really give a damn on how they do there. So we're going to do 4 rounds. How I feel the Cowboys will do on the first day, the second day, and the beginning of the 3rd day. No trades whatsoever. We're going to just pick where we're at. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. I was playing around with it a little bit earlier today, so that was going to, so that I could just go back through and try this again. So let's see. Anything out of the ordinary? Nothing super crazy. Okay. Let's take a look at who's on the board. Got a lot of options the Cowboys can go with. Okay. Just kind of going back. Yep. So, kind of going to our depth chart here, I'm more inclined to go with the left guard. You go with the long-term answer. You could go with, again, best player available. For me, it would be Tyler Linderbaum. That's just, again, my personal opinion. But unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys will not go that route. I think that, I personally think that your best bet would be to roll with a Kenyon Green. You get a young guard that has position flexibility that the Cowboys do like. And you roll from that, because you look at your wide receivers, right? You have a lot of wide receivers that will probably be there. And I could be wrong. But for me, I'm going with Kenyon Green here. So there we go. We get our left guard. You still kind of have question marks at your tight end position. You also have question marks at your wide receiver position like we talked about. So there's that. Okay. I'm shocked Nakobe Dean got that far down, man. If he made it to pick 56, I'm going to do a freaking backflip. All right, so we made it to pick 56. Let's go ahead and let's think. George Pickens is there, which we got to go through everything first before we make a decision. So George Pickens is here. You have Trey McBride here. If you want to double down with Bernhard Raimann, you can do that too. You got a couple. So, the Cowboys have a wide range of selection. They really do. They got a lot of nice pieces here. For me, this is a no-brainer. You take George Pickens. You get a nice receiving threat for the long term. And you re-solidify that wide receiving core. And on top of that, you got a guy for when Gallup's out you can rely on. So, George Pickens is going to be the pick here. That is no question there. I've seen people talk about George Pickens at pick 24. To be honest with you, it depends on how the rest of the board goes, but I feel like that would be a little bit of a reach for me. That's just my personal taste. Okay. Okay. Coming up on pick 88. There we go. So, you have Drake Jackson, Nick Bonito, Troy Anderson. You have a lot of options here, right? Now, if it were me, so let's take a look. Tight end. You still have Jelani Woods. Me personally, where do they grade him? I'm actually curious. No way he's a 4th-round value. The developmental tight end. He has the build. I love Jelani Woods. I think that I would take him in the 3rd round. However, you know, the draft could end up being anything. I really love Troy Anderson. I think that they are rating him pretty low. Yeah, the most versatile. That's funny to me. I'm rolling with Troy Anderson here. I need a linebacker, you know, that can really do their thing. You have Sam Williams, but, you know, and I would love to have these edge guys. Like, you could really go anywhere with this. But for me, I'm taking Troy Anderson. I get my linebacker, and we roll into the 4th round, just hoping that someone falls there. And again, that 3rd round pick is going to be huge for Dallas because there's a massive gap between that 3rd pick and that 4th pick. So, let's see how things go. Okay. Our pick is coming up. We're at 129. There goes Jelani Woods. So, for me, I would love to trade up and get him if he fell that far down. Okay. Alright. So you got a couple guys in here. Let's just assume, you know, take a look. What are they saying about him? Rotational 3 and 5 technique. Yeah, this is it. The Cowboys just start. Yeah, I see that from him. I'm shocked that they. Interesting. So let's go back. We took a linebacker, wide receiver, and an inside. You know, we took our guard. Let's take a look at tight end. Honestly, you can wait because if the Cowboys really like Jalen Weidermeyer, just use one of them 5th round picks on him. Because listen, who cares? Safeties, okay, corners. Got some nice running backs here. I like Zamir White here. But again, it really comes down to what the Cowboys want to do. He's like, you know, I think you should take him if he's the... But Matt Butler's... Let me just double check. I mean, you got Osa. You got Neville Gallimore. I don't see a reason to take another, 3 tech. I don't see another reason for that. However, I think here I would go with the running back here. I will go with Zamir White out of Georgia. And we end this thing off on that kind of note. You know, because Tony Pollard's going to be gone next year. And you got to have to think for the long term. And also, Zeke could be gone too. So you got to really look at that as well. So that wraps up that. So let's go to our user picks. Kenyon Green in round 1. George Pickens in round 2. Troy Anderson in round 3. And Zamir White with our final pick in the 4th round. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it is a very long video, but this is the final one. I wanted to talk about my thoughts and opinions on each of the position groups, give out my thoughts. I think if the Cowboys do this, I'd be a little bit more okay with it, but the Cowboys are kind of cornering themselves to do these things. So, I'm hoping the Cowboys do very well, but I hope they don't reach. So that's my final mock draft on my end. Stay tuned for the collaborative mock draft. That will be set in the motions, so we'll let you know when that is set to go out. You have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.